Now we're working on our hand some more, and I've softened the knuckles a little bit. They were a little bit too harsh. Um, that point there looks a little bit too low, so I want to move that up. There you go. And then I've softened the edges a little bit just to give them, I want to have that little dipping here where it's a little bit harder on top and softer on the bottom, but I didn't want it to be as much as it was. And remember, I'm doing that just by using the Sculpt Geometry tool, setting it to smooth or push or pull. Okay, and then just playing with this until I get a nice soft effect. Okay, and right now I have the wireframe on just so I can see where my points are, but I could also go down to display and turn off my wireframe. Okay, I find that in areas like this where we have these like lines coming in, that it's more beneficial to do a pull. Okay, so this is what the pull is going to do. I'm just going to exaggerate it. Is it just pulling it up? Okay, and then the smooth that's here is smoothing it out. So it pulls it and doesn't do that. If I just did smooth, what's going to happen is I'm just going to lose volume, and it's just going to start flattening out and actually look worse than it did before. Okay, so using pull with some smoothness, we can kind of find a sweet spot of kind of blending this stuff together. Okay, so now that we have this, we can go through and add the webbing. Okay, right now the webbing is pretty flat, and if I bring up my pictures, there, and we look at this one, you can see that from right about here where the knuckle is, there's a taper that goes down. Okay, so right about here it starts tapering down to get to that webbing. Okay, so I'm going to go here. I'll go to vertices, or actually I'll go to edges. And I can just grab these pieces here and just pull these back. Like that. Now I also want to switch back to one mode, so I'm hitting 1, because I want to make sure that I don't extend past these other lines. Okay, and I can also get a good idea and say, okay, well obviously this point is way too high up. Okay, there we go. Right, so that's good there, and I'm going to flip over to the bottom of the hand. And I can take the webbing areas and just give them a pull forward. Okay, so now we have that webbing happening on the hand. And once we add the knuckles in there, it'll be a little bit more obvious. Okay. So now for the knuckles, we're just going to go into here and just grab these points and just pull those up. Okay, we may need to add another division here just because I think the knuckle is going to be kind of a little bit too going into it like that. Yes. So I'm going to add in another division. Let me hit undo on that point. There we go. I'm just going to pull it back a little bit and get this in line first. And also spread this webbing open a little bit more. Okay. So now let me go into my edit mesh, insert edge loop. And drop in another division about here on each finger. And this is just to kind of hold that shape a little closer so that when I pull the knuckles up, that it doesn't extend too far into the finger. Okay, so basically we're isolating where the knuckle is. We don't want to go too crazy. This one's a bit too high. Okay, always spin around as you're doing this. That way you get an idea of where your points should be at. And then always switch back to 3 so we can take a look at it and see, okay, it looks like we have Knuckles now. I think I'll even take these points down a little bit here. And maybe even take them out more. These just need to come out. Yeah, this one needs to come up a little bit. This one needs to go down a little bit. There we go. So that's looking good. Alright, now there's lots of little details on the hand that we're just not going to include. There's little, viney type things that stick in the back where your veins and your tendons are at. We're just not going to include that just because this could really be a high-tech thing that we would be creating here, and it would take longer than I want it to. I want you to get some basic understanding of this, and then when you have more time, then you can go through and do those extra details on there. Okay? But anytime you model, it's always going to be just this blocking out stage, and then it's going to be going in and adding that fine detail. And what I'm doing now is just adjusting these points. I just don't like where the points are laying at. So I want to make sure I have a nice little smooth spot here. Yeah, it's smooth enough. Okay, and the same thing here. I need to pull up some of these. All right, that's good. Okay, I'm going to give myself a wrist too. That's going to really help kind of define what my hand's going to look like. Okay, so I'm just going to grab my image. Just kind of angle it the right side. There we go. So now I can just grab the faces on that block. Okay, so I just grabbed all of these faces. And I'm going to go to the top view and I'm going to flatten it out. So I'm just grabbing my scale and just flattening it like that. I'm just going to pull it back, scale it in a little bit more, and then go to Edit Mesh, Extrude, and then pull that back. Okay, so now we have more of a wrist that's here. Now I don't need these faces now, so I'm just going to delete them. You'll see that now we have this more of like a wrist shape. Okay, and we'll define that a little bit more later. I'm also going to go to the top view and just kind of give the hand a little bit more shape. I think I want to have this just be scaled out a little bit more. Like that. That should be good. Okay. And as far as the side view, let's go to our side view. I'm going to grab these and pull them up some. Okay, that's good. Alright, so now we got to pull out the thumb. And the thumb is typically, it's a tricky little guy. If you look at the picture of the thumb, kind of has some detail to it. If you look at your own thumb, you really have to figure out that line of where the middle of this is going to be coming out. Okay, and the thumb is a little bit tricky too, because it doesn't just like come out from the side. I can't grab this face and extrude it and say there's the thumb. Okay, because the thumb actually has more effect on the hand here. So let me delete the history. Let me make sure I save. And then I'm going to go and save this as, increment and save, or just do a save as and rename it. And I want to figure out where I want that thumb to come from and which direction I want it to go. So I'm going to just rearrange some of these points here to get them a little bit neater. Okay. Good there. I think at this point I want to slide back a little bit. Okay. So that should be good for this area. Now if we look at that thumb again, of where it comes out, you can see that it's basically like this is the thumb, this chunk right here. Let me see if I can go to my paint tool. That right there, a little bit more, right there is all the thumb. So we have to grab this area. Also, in this side, we have the thumb kind of extending here. You know, you have that line on your hand. So we have this, and we have this, which is where the thumb is coming out of. Okay? So we can't simply just grab a face and do that. We're going to grab several faces. And we also want to make sure we put the thumb on the right side. I don't want to go here, start pulling out pieces for the thumb, and then realize, whoops, that's the pinky side. So we want to grab it from this side. So I'm going to go through and, oops, come on, go to Edit Mesh, go to Interactive Split Tool, and I'm just going to draw in where I think the thumb should be coming through. So okay, I'm going to double click this tool because I want to turn off my magnet tolerance. Okay, something like that, I think, is where I want the thumb to be coming through. Enter. Okay, now this does leave me with some triangles. I have a triangle right here. I have a triangle right here, and a triangle right there, and a triangle right here, and a triangle right there. Okay, so I want to fix this up, but first I'm going to grab the thumb and pull it out, and then we'll fix it up. So making sure this is the bottom of the hand. Yes, it is the bottom of the hand, the palm area. Those are all the pieces I think I'll need for the thumb. So now I'm just going to extrude it. And I don't like this because it's going to inflate the thumb. I don't want that. So I'm just going to switch to the Move tool and just pull this out. And then scale it down. Okay, and you get an idea of where the thumb is coming in at this point. And I'm also going to angle it. Let me turn my picture on so we can see it. So I'm just going to pull this back a little bit more. I'm just going to rotate it a little bit and start getting the thumb on that path to get up here. Okay, and then I need to clean up these edges because this is, if we start extruding this even more, this is just going to be a mess. So I can do that by going to Mesh and say Average Vertices. Okay, and what it's doing is kind of softening that. Now it did put it back inside here, but I don't care because I can always just pull it back out again. Okay, and it didn't really soften this edge. So I really need to go in here and start to manually tweak some of these points in order to get them to be where I need them to be, which should be just this nice round thumb type shape. Okay, if I hit 3 at this point, it's going to look like garbage, so I'm not even going to bother hitting 3. I'm trying to round this out, give it more of like the thumb's end shape, kind of like we have here with the fingers. Okay, if you imagine that I'm trying to set up that extrude, that's what I'm trying to do here. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to grab those points there, pull this out some more. I want to also go. Let me flip it over. There we go. Sometimes you have to flip it just to kind of visualize where you're pulling the stuff out. Okay. So then again, I'm going to rotate it. And I'm going to scale it down because it's just too big. And I'm going to put it basically at this first joint. Okay, this knuckle right here I'm just moving it to kind of line it up to that. There we go. And I'm also going to flatten it. So I'm just scaling this in just to flatten this out so it's not so terribly rounded. Okay. And then by doing that, I can see that, okay, I'm getting some points that are really, it looks like it's like twisted, so I want to rotate this a little bit. And then I want to go through and just tweak some of these points to get, again, just this more rounded look to this. The more time you spend kind of separating this stuff and getting this stuff in position, the easier the rest of the thumb is going to be. And it may take you, it's possible that it may take you, several attempts to do this. This is why we saved it as, so that we can go back to that original piece if, this one isn't working out. And then I'm going to take these guys here in the middle and then just do that average vertices. There we go. Okay. And then I can just scoot this guy over because he wants to be, this guy over because he wants to be. And you can see how that shape is pretty rounded now. Okay. This is a little bit tight. I'm not really sure I'm liking this. So I'm actually just going to take that edge, edit mesh, delete the edge. Okay, and I'm going to just analyze the points here. You can see how I have like this little triangle happening here. Well, I can just grab these points here, and just go to Edit Mesh, Merge to Center. And it merges those, getting rid of a triangle. This is now a quad right here. I can hit 3 just to make sure that I'm not messing up my geometry too much. Okay, it's going to be a little bit messed up right now just because we're in the middle of making something. There we go. So there's our thumb. We'll add more detail to it. Let me go back to the top view. Rotate this again. Okay, so we just constantly back and forth, adjusting and adjusting and adjusting until we get that good shape. Okay, and if you look at the thumb, the flat part is actually going to be here, not like in the fingers. It was on the top a bit, where the thumb comes off to the side, so the flat part is going to be on that side. So if we're looking at this, this area is going to be flatter than this area. This area is going to be more rounded. But I think I'm at a good shape to kind of go through and extrude this now for my other pieces. So extrude, switch to the move tool, and just pull it up to the next knuckle and rotate it. There you go. Extrude again, move tool, pull it up to the tip, and then scale it down some. Okay, if I go to wireframe, I can get a better sense. Now this guy, I don't have as prevalent of this dip in my thumb. He's got a pretty big dip right there. I'm sure he hears it all the time. Alright, so I'm going to turn my layer off for now, just so I can see this. Alright, I have the basic shape of it. So now what I want to do is just go through and kind of clean up some of this mess. Alright, so I'm going to go and grab this edge. And you can see I have this splitting. I have it comes up and it goes bam like this. And this one comes up here. There's nothing really there. So I'm just looking at this and seeing, where is it that I can kind of reroute these faces to so that I get something that's a little bit cleaner. I know that I want to go into my edge loops, and I want to insert an edge loop right about here to add a bit more detail to this. Okay, but first I want to clean this up and then start doing that. So I'm going to go and, let's say, this guy here. I need this edge. I don't think I need that edge. So if I double-click this, it goes to here to there. And if I go to Edit Mesh and say Delete Edge, that leaves me with this face being a 5-sided. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-sided. Yes. Okay. So now what I can do is go into my interactive split tool and just connect it here. Oops. Let me go to my options for it. And I'm going to turn my magnet tolerance on. Okay, this is also a 5-sided, so I want to just connect that. And sometimes it just acts silly. So we just redraw it. Oops, still doesn't like it. Make sure I'm clicking right on the edge. No, it just does not like that. So we'll fix that in a minute. Alright, now I had another triangle here, right here. Here's my other triangle. So I can look at this and see, can I get rid of the triangle? You know, what's the scenario with this one? I'm looking around to see if I have another triangle. I don't. Okay, so that's my only other triangle is right here. And right here. There's my other one. I knew I had another guy somewhere in here. So this is on the palm of the hand. So I want to keep this line going right there. So what I can do is if I click on this edge, and then I click on, so where's another triangle at? Right there. Okay, so what I'm going to do, and sometimes it takes a minute just to kind of figure out where you want these things to flow. So I'm going to take this edge here, and I'm going to delete it. Okay, and the reason for me deleting this is because I don't want this to really flow too much from this finger into that finger like that. That's a lot of divisions. So I'm just going to hold Control, hit Delete, and that gets rid of it. Okay. Then what I can do is take this, and by simply connecting this to now that piece, this connects to there. Then I have 1, 2, 3, 5 sides here. Okay. So I've created a 5-sided polygon there, but this is now 4. Okay, even though it looks like a triangle the same shape, I now have 4 sides that are showing that. All right, and that's our goal, is to have quads everywhere. So then I can go to this guy, and I'm just going to reroute this down to here. There we go. Okay, so now this, if I count these sides, 1, 2, 3, 4. And if I count all the sides there, it's going to be 4. I still have a triangle here, so I can get rid of that by Control deleting that. And then drawing a new shape right there. So you can see how it now flows back there. And then going to here and just redrawing this to flow down to the end of that. Okay, and if it doesn't do it, which you can see that's not doing it, sometimes it just takes going the other direction, like this. And now it kind of drew something there. Obviously it's wrong, but let me go through and delete that. For whatever reason, it doesn't like it. So I'm just going to delete this face. And I'm also going to delete this extra edge I added in. Control delete, not just regular delete, Control delete. I'm going to go to vertices and just make sure I don't have any extra vertices hanging around. And that is exactly what I have. By me trying to add those splits, it was creating these extra vertices. Okay, so I'm just going to hit not Control delete for these, because I just want to delete the vertices. Okay, so now I'm going to get that filled in. So I can do it a couple ways. Just this, and this edge. Okay, because I don't have another edge here, I'm going to have to extrude this. So I'm grabbing those 3 edges and extruding, switching to the move tool and pulling it back, pulling it up, and getting it roughly placed. There we go. So that's roughly placed. And then I can go into the vertices here and grab these 2 that are not connected. That's where the hole is. And going to Edit Mesh Merge, grabbing these ones, Edit Mesh Merge. Or just hit G because we just did it. Okay, so now we hit 3. And I still have something funky happening here. I might have a vertice kind of hanging out somewhere. Okay, the fact that that one's pulling like that makes it look like it's kind of weird. It might be perfectly fine just how it's transitioning. Okay. And then I can check too, let me save as hand 03. And if I go to insert edge loop, I can test out to make sure I have quads. And the way it works is if I click and drag and it goes all the way around, I have quads. So I can hit undo, go here, and you can see how this one's flowing is that it's going down the finger. I don't want that. I'd rather have it go straight across here. And then if I go here, okay, that's doing a good job. I like the way that's working. If I go there, it's going across. If I go here, it's going down the finger. Okay, sometimes you can't help it. It's just going to go down the finger. Okay, so I think that we're just going to live with that because we can always add divisions here. And if I needed something there, I could probably just reroute it manually to go where I want it to go. But I don't think I need any more divisions right now. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is go through my Mesh Sculpt Geometry tool. I'm going to go into Smooth, turn my smoothness strength down. And it's smoothing it out way too much. Okay. Usually when you have a lot of spaced out divisions, like these are pretty spaced out, as I smooth this, it jumps. Okay, it's not going to do it there apparently. But in some of these areas like that, you can see it's definitely jumping. So this is where we would use the pull. And we would play with the max displacement. Okay, and it's pushing it down still too much, so I'm just going to take my maximum displacement up. There we go. That way it kind of pulls it and then smooths it, pulls it and smooths it. And I'm just smoothing out this area. Okay, and you can see we're getting faceted here. That's fine. It'll get faceted. We'll let it get faceted and then we'll fix it. Okay. Right now this stage is just kind of smoothing out all those divisions there and blending it better into the hand. There we go. Okay. Now the hand looks a little bit puffy, like, maybe it got burned. So I'm going to go in with a push now and just go smaller brush, holding B and dragging. Oops. And smaller maximum displacement, holding M while dragging. And I'm just flattening out that part. And eventually I'll pull up where, the puffy area is here. I think I want to smooth out some of this. I don't care if we lose some volume. I think I actually pulled it up a bit too much. And again, we're just looking at it from several angles. Okay, and I'm not even dragging, I'm just clicking at this point just to soften that. Okay, so I think that's good where we're at. So flip our hand over, and our fingernail is going to be on this side, and it's actually going to be a little bit more rotated than what this is. If you look at your own hand, let's look at our picture. In this case, his thumb is like perfectly off to the side. I don't know how his thumb is perfectly off to the side. Mine hangs off a little bit. It doesn't rotate all the way around. Okay? So, give it a little bit of a rotation by grabbing these and just rotating them slightly. Now I'm grabbing in the middle here and just being careful that I don't go crazy with it. Okay? And the same thing with this. And I could grab the blue and then grab the red. That works also. Okay, then I can also grab this edge and just add a little bit more of that transition in there. There we go. Okay, I think I want to come in with my brush again and just kind of soften some of these to get that to be a little bit more rounded. And use pull, a little more displacement. Okay, what I want to do is just not lose any volume, and as I click this, it's like flattening out. So more displacement. There we go. All right, and now that it's gone too far, now I can switch to smooth. And just hit this from a couple angles. There we go. Okay. So there's our thumb. Let's go through and add some more detail to it. So insert edge loop. Right there. That's good. And right there. We could have also used bevel like we did on the other ones, or just inserting them manually. This is going to be the knuckle area. Obviously, we have more divisions than we do on the hand. Okay, now it's going to be a little trickier working on an angle, but just, obviously you want to do your best. And I can switch to, again, I can try switching to one of our other pivots. If I switch to the set to edge, click that edge. There you go. I think that's going to be a good angle. I can push it in. That. Okay, now again we have to watch it because here it's good on top, but it's actually like pinching in the bottom. I'm just going to reset that to world and then pull it up a little bit. Maybe even scale it in a little bit. There we go. Okay, and that's really the only like big like knuckle and squishy area, whatever the creasing area that we would have there. The other part back here would be more of a knuckle, so we can add in another edge loop. And then just pull this out. But there's no crease area on the other side, it's just the knuckle. Okay, and the tip of it looks like we're kind of at a weird look to it. Let's put the nail in. Okay, this is really going to be, a bit trickier than the other one just because we have to make sure we get the right faces. If we grab one face too many or one face too little, it's not going to work. So I think I have a good selection here. If you look at this face, you can see how this is a vertical face. Okay, sort of, kind of, it's like a side quad. And this is a side quad, and I've grabbed all the faces in between those side quads. Okay, so then I can go to extrude and do like we did in the other one. And actually, let me hit undo. I've actually gone a bit too far back. Let me insert an edge loop here for the thumbnail. About there should be good. Okay, then again, grab the faces. Like that, good. And then we'll go to extrude and take our offset down. And what I did on this one is I recessed it. You can see how I have this like recessed nail. I'm going to grab these edges and just pull them out. Okay, it's a little bit different method than I did in the other one. And then you can see the thickness here of the nail and the thinness there, so I want to make sure it's pretty even. And I can extrude that. I'm going to switch to the move tool and just pull it out. Not that much, not a girl nail. And then hit 3, we'll see that looks good. Now we just have to tweak the stuff around it. So let me go and insert an edge loop. Drop one right here, just to kind of hold that line a little bit better. I want to grab some of these edges. And if it helps you to do them one at a time, do them one at a time. I just think it's easier to kind of keep the flow of this entire thing by grabbing them all at the same time and then moving it. Even if it's kind of moving it one way and then moving it another way and then moving it another way. It'll take some practice, but obviously you can get there. And then I'm going to take this next line and just kind of puff that one up a little bit. take this line that's inside here and maybe knock it down a little bit. And I can try, doing normal and seeing if I can get a good angle there. Sometimes you can, just by playing with those tools, you can just get a better angle. Sometimes you can't. Okay, so we're getting closer. I think I need another division right in the middle of this. There we go. And then I'm going to pull this one up a little bit. And this is just the transition, you kind of look at it and say, okay, well now it needs that little bump right by the finger to kind of help set that nail bed in. That's what we're doing. There we go. Okay. And then of course my thumb is rounded, this one is pretty square, so we want to go through and grab some points, and in this case I'm going to grab these middle two and pull it out. And then grab these middle two, pull it out. Grab this one. Okay. I've kind of made the shape inside here a little wobbly. That's no big deal. Just move out those points. I'm not even going to use the smooth tool. I'm just going to grab points and just move them out where they should be. Okay, my nail looks a little wobbly too I saw it from some angle. Just want to go through and tweak it. Okay, so now we have our thumbnail, we have our fingernail. Flip this over. I can probably adjust these points a little bit more. And you can see the idea of this is that it's just a matter of inserting edges in the right spots and then tweaking where those are at. And in this case, I am grabbing this middle area and moving it because I'm at a funky angle. Oops, I've gone too far. Hit one, and I can see I've gone too far with that. Okay, I'll hit 3 again. I think I want to use the mesh sculpt geometry tool and just kind of hit this, kind of transition that a little bit better with some smoothing. There we go. Okay, and I'm going to pull out these faces here just to give me a little bit more puckering. You have to be very careful. If you go too crazy with this or you're too hard-handed, it's going to look funny. Okay? Don't be afraid to try to use these brushes to get the detail in here. But again, you have to be careful with them. You go too crazy with it, you go too heavy, and it's going to look wrong. And then the only fix for it is literally to delete it and do it again. A little bit too hard there. Let's take this down. And sometimes you can't really get a good value here, so I go into this and I'll type in that. And those numbers are going to be based on your own settings. They're not going to be based on my settings because your hand is going to be a different size. There we go. Smooth this out a little bit there. That's good. Palm. Okay. So we're nearly done. It's just a matter of now just going back and kind of refining some of these. So like this edge here, okay, I want to take these points and move them up. So I'm just going to grab the point, hold down C, and middle drag on here. Now again, I want to make sure I don't go crazy with this. So I'm just sliding it along there. And that way I don't really change the shape of it. I'm more changing the alignments. If you get a little OCD with your points, that's not a bad thing. You know, we want this to look nice and neat. Okay, so now I can grab these. I'm gonna grab the vertices here. Actually, I think I'm gonna add one in here. Let's go and add an edge loop. About there. And then I can just grab the edges from here, shift click here, and then just pull it up a little bit. Just to give me a little bit of puckering, not puckering, a little bit of puffiness on that side. Okay, and you can see we're a little bit hard in some areas, so we'll go back with our sculpt geometry tool. We'll go in with our pole. A little bit more on here. A little bit more on here. Okay, and I can also use my push, kind of push down the center of the hand, where the cupping would be. Okay, I can go into this. I'm just going to shrink some of these points here. My wrist is probably a little bit too thick right there. That's good. I'm going to insert another edge loop. Now remember, if I install it here, it's going to go down the thumb. I don't want that. So I'm going to do it right there. Okay. And then what I can do is, you see where that is, kind of pull that up a little bit. There we go. So now we got more of a wrist. I can go in with this here. And I don't think I'm a big fan of just how this is working, how this is like spreading along here. So I can reroute these things too. I can, if I find a good starting point, I can basically tell this one to go this way and this one to go that way. So if I go to my interactive split tool, and I say, okay, well, I don't want this one to go down, I want this one to go over. So I'm basically redrawing how I want this to flow. Now eventually I'm going to get to the other side and need to find a spot where this is going to connect. Okay, now again, I don't want to go up the thumb, I just want this to kind of flow over here. So I'm just going to stop it there. Okay, and I see I have a 5-sided there, I'll fix that. And then, where was my other one? That was the one I just drew right there. Okay. And this one's going that way. Let me delete. I need that guy. I'm just kind of evening these out a little bit more. And again, I could use that sculpt tool, and that will help even them out. And sometimes I like to have the wireframe on so I can see. That's really what I'm adjusting, is the wireframe, evening out the wireframe. There we go. So that's looking nice there. Okay, I'm going to grab this edge, just kind of scoot it up a little bit. Okay. Alright, so now we have that. See, we have more of a thumb there, thumb drumstick. Okay, so let's go back to our matter that we were dealing with, which is kind of reflowing these. Okay, this guy's going to come down here. Let's scoot him down. Okay, you can see how he's flowing. And I might be able to combine these. Just to see what that's going to look like. When I flatten that, I'm going to get a triangle there I can see. If I merge, let's see, what happens if I just delete that? Okay, I'll get a 5-sided there. And then I could take this 5-sided, and I could split it right down the middle here. There we go. Okay, so now we're all cleaned up here. So if I hit 3, I get something that's a little bit nicer looking than what I had before. Okay, and that was the whole purpose of that, just to make something a little bit nicer looking. And let me go to my Sculpt Geometry tool. Make sure I'm on smooth. Oops. And see, there's a big jump because there's nothing until back here. So I just got to be a little bit tighter in this area and smooth that out. There we go. And all the smooth is doing is just doing like an average vertice, but we're painting it. Okay. Now I have on here a 5-sided that we were currently looking at, which is right there still. So I can look at this and just try to figure out where I want to take that. Okay. If I take it down the finger, obviously it's going to end up somewhere down the finger, and it's going to have to come back here. Okay, because we basically started it at one point and we ended it at another point. Oops, there it is. So I may do something a little bit fancier and maybe just not carry it down this far. Okay, if I'm going to get rid of it, Control Delete, let me get rid of it back here. Okay, or let me try to wrap it around somewhere else. Okay, I think, let me see where this is at. Okay, it's coming in right here on the hand. I want this to come over. And I don't mind if it's terminated right here. And then I can maybe do something with that. Okay. So let me just carry this down. There. Okay, now I'll have a triangle again. I go through and delete that edge. Oops. Delete that edge. So maybe delete this edge. Okay, this one becomes my new 5-sided. Okay, so what I want to do is I'm looking at this and I want to have, like this flows all the way around here. So I want this one to do the same thing, okay? And right now it's not going to do a very good job because this is my 5-sided piece. So I'm going to take these 2 vertices here and merge them. There we go. And that gives me a triangle at this point, but I can take that triangle and just use the interactive split tool and just draw this back to there. Okay, now I hit 3, and then I have this, which is not horrible on here. Sometimes you just have to kind of find areas you're going to hide stuff at. Okay, look at that in smooth mode. Can't really tell any huge difference. So now we can go through and just kind of adjust some of our points. The hands modeling is basically done. Now it's just a matter of refining. Okay, going in with our sculpt tool, maybe rounding out the arm a little bit more. Oops. Okay, and if it does that, we'll just insert an edge loop. Okay, we can insert a couple of them back here, just to kind of hold the shape. And then go with our sculpt tool and smooth that out. And then I can always take this and then just push it back forward once I get it into position. Now I like how the roundness of this is, and this is like really blocky back here. So what I'm going to do is delete all these faces. Okay. Then I can take this hand that's nice and round. Let me double click it. I'm going to flatten it. Pull it out a little bit more. Okay, so it's a nice round hand wrist area. And then I can just go to Edit Mesh and say Extrude, switch to the Move tool, and pull it back. Okay. Now, as far as the modeling goes, this hand is basically done. I can go through and add some extra details and adjust some things. Like right now, the knuckles look kind of weird because this is pretty bumpy here. So I'd want to go through and tweak the look of this. Maybe pull that down a little bit. Maybe pull this up a little bit. Oops, not up, down. Okay, and maybe even adjust the knuckle some. Alright, I'm going to leave the finer details to you to go through and just make the hand look as good as you can make it look. Okay, and it might be just tweaking and tweaking and tweaking for a little while until it starts to look good. And you can use, obviously you have reference, you have 2 pairs of reference on you at all times. You also have the internet, you can look for reference. Lots of different areas in here. We can even go into this and add these little dips that we would get inside there. And the way I'm going to add the dips is by raising up these areas. Now you see I have kind of tendons on the back of the hand as well. Okay, the knuckles do need some more work. It's a little bit too bumpy in the middle here. This should definitely come down. This should definitely come down. Okay, I may want to add another division going down the middle of this just to add a little bit more detail. But I think we're getting to a good spot of, you know, this is looking like a pretty good hand. Okay. I want to avoid things like this where the thumb is like streaking all the way back here. My thumb still is a little bit puffy. It needs to come down more. So I definitely want to go through and smooth out these kinds of things. And it might be just, you know, this is too heavy-handed. So I'm just going to go into my vertices and just manually go through and kind of tweak these to get this to be a nice, smooth transition. Okay, so tweak your model, get it looking pretty nice. And then when we come back next, we'll go through the texturing part of this. And we're just doing a very basic texture on this.